This may come as a surprise to my Gen Alpha viewers, but there was a time in the games industry when taking 6 or more years to develop a game wasn't the standard, and you typically didn't have to wait over a decade for a series to conclude. Look at the gaps in between the release dates for the original Gears trilogy. 1 year in between the first and second, and 2 years in between the second and third. Oh, the things we took for granted. Call me a nostalgia-blinded fool all you like, but I miss when studios released games on a consistent basis. But it would be disingenuous of me to say that no prolific game studios exist today. Case in point, Madmind Studio, the subject of today's video. They are indeed consistent, as in they've been consistently making nothing but garbage for almost a decade. They exploded onto the gaming scene in 2018 with Agony, which was a terrible game, but you could chalk up some of its failings to growing pains as a studio. Then they followed it up with Succubus, which I played about 20 minutes of, hated, and refunded. Then there was Paranoid, which got next to no coverage and mediocre reviews. Nymphomaniac, same deal. And just last year, Madmind Shadow Tormentor, which seems to be an appropriate title judging by the Steam reviews. So I've been wanting to talk about Madmind for a while now. I feel there is a place in the games industry for, let's call them, extreme games. One centered around depraved characters, taboo subject matter, and dark, adult stories. You know, kind of like Cronenberg movies. For better and worse, Madmind is leading the charge in that particular niche. But good lord, I wish it were literally anyone else because they are fucking inept when it comes to game design and storytelling. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, let's see, which one of their games should we review? Agony? No, I'm saving that for a longer video. Nymphomaniac? No. Succubus? No. Tormentor? Nope. Guess we're going with Paranoid then.
I knew it.
Of course you knew. After all, it was your idea.
No, you're not real. You're just a product of my imagination.
Maybe you're right. But so what? Is this also the product of your imagination? Patrick.
So Paranoid puts you in the role of Patrick Kalman, a drug-addicted schizophrenic whose parents were murdered 15 years ago, and whose sister, Rachel, disappeared under mysterious circumstances. He lives in a rundown apartment, presumably somewhere in San Francisco, and a mysterious virus has forced the city into lockdown. But while Patrick is rotting on his couch one evening, he receives a phone call, the voice on the other end sounding suspiciously like his missing sister's. Patrick is then faced with a difficult choice: leave his apartment and search for his sister, trusting that the call wasn't just another one of his hallucinations, or stay in his apartment and try to piece together what happened to his parents all those years ago, and maybe even discover his neighbor's dark secret in the process.
No, I don't want to go in there.
So Paranoid's main selling point is that it's essentially two games. One is a linear first-person brawler, which takes more than a few cues from the Condemned series, and the other is a first-person puzzle game, and here I'm using puzzle game very generously, that is somewhat reminiscent of Silent Hill 4, or to be specific, the apartment sequences from 4. The punchline is that both games suck, for different reasons but also with a few overlapping issues, the main one being Madmind's signature terrible storytelling. But to say that Paranoid even has a story is being generous. It's more like a collection of ideas, scratch that, a collection of notebook scribbles drawn with frozen dog shit. It's messy at best and completely incoherent at worst.
With time, the holy bloodline has become diluted. The issue lies in the quantity of Ishtar blood cells in the object. Only blood extraction and continuous concentration can make the vessel functional again.
Patrick, run away!
You are here. Bring me his head.
I'd say that the source of its narrative problems has to do with the game having like 7 or 8 different plot lines, and maybe 2 or 3 of them get satisfying conclusions. There's Patrick's missing sister, his dad, who may or may not have connections to a cult, there's the implication that the virus was created by the government, there's a murderer roaming the city who may or may not be Patrick, the cockroaches are possibly surveillance cameras controlled by radio waves, there are masked figures patrolling the streets with guns, oh, and before I forget, Rachel was having sex with Patrick's neighbor who is secretly a demon, or maybe maybe her and Rachel are both demons and that's why she disappeared. Or maybe her dad sacrificed her. Or maybe none of this actually happened because your character hallucinated everything. Who the fuck knows? I'm starting to get sick of these stories where your character was crazy and or dreaming the whole time is the intended interpretation. Not to say that it has never been done well, but it too often is used as a crutch for incoherent storytelling, a way for hack writers to scramble out of the corners they've written themselves into. And given how abrupt the endings for both paths are, that's exactly how it feels, as if the writers didn't know how to conclude all their dangling story threads, so they just shrugged their shoulders and went, yeah, he's crazy, so none of that really happened or whatever. How about you tell a coherent story? You can make it as abstract as you want, but I want to be able to follow it, and I want a proper conclusion. Instead, I just feel like I wasted 4 hours of my life, and if I wanted that, I would just doom scroll the front page of Reddit. But here's the thing, even if the story were good, or at the very least coherent, I'd still give Paranoid a thumbs down for the sole reason that it's yet another Madmind game that is little more than a hodgepodge of half-baked mechanics that runs terribly, and also very buggy.
And trying to wake him up. As the Cat Queen opened the gate, a great black cat appeared before her eyes.
And I think this, more so than their lackluster storytelling, is what frustrates me the most about Madmind. It's been 8 years since Agony humiliated itself on the world stage, and Madmind appears to have learned nothing from that game's failures. How are they still incapable of making acceptable first-person animations? How are they still incapable of making a working stealth section? How is it that all of their games look utterly dreadful and yet run about as well as a two-legged cow in pumps? And finally, how is it that their games have only gotten worse since Agony? And yes, for the record, I do think Paranoid is worse than Agony. They both suffer from the same problems: scattershot game design, bad storytelling, bugs, and bugs, but at least Agony was interesting to look at. Games have depicted the land of eternal damnation many times before, but not to the extreme degree that Agony did. And its depiction of hell was, and still is, unique. In spite of its terrible graphics, it had some fittingly gnarly and grotesque environments and visuals, which have stuck with me to this very day. And what does Paranoid have? Dirty apartment, dirty alley, sewer, and finally, a dirty warehouse. Wow, what great environment design. And what great gameplay too. I sure love fighting the same two junkies and doing the same awful looking finishers over and over again. I don't even need to describe why the combat is terrible. Just look at it. Does this look fun?
You have a few seconds left to live. Use them wisely.
You guys are disturbing me. They have already helped me once.
I think I know why Madmind's games all turn out the same way. It's because they don't finish them. I'm convinced of that. Every single one of their games plays like an alpha, a rough prototype thrown together for the purpose of getting feedback from the community, except the joke is on us because they charge money for them and don't listen to feedback. They just stick their fingers in their ears and rapidly shit out another game that suffers from all the same issues as the previous ones. I remember letting out an exasperated sigh while playing Paranoid because I had to reload a checkpoint after I couldn't interact with an important object yet again. This, to put it bluntly, is unacceptable. It is unacceptable to release and charge money for a game that's barely playable. It is unacceptable to continually overpromise with each game and then underdeliver to such a degree that even Peter Molyneux would blush. It is unacceptable to have blatant, obvious animation loops and errors in what's supposed to be an immersive horror game. If anyone from Madmind is watching this, here's a word of advice. It's 4 letters long and begins with an S. Shit. Nah, just kidding. The word is stop. Just stop. Stop pushing these broken games out the door and stop ignoring feedback. Just slow down, take your time, and release your next game when it's in acceptable condition, and not before. In conclusion, don't buy any games from Madmind until they've gotten their shit together. Go play the Lust for Darkness series instead if you want to get your extreme games fix. They're rough around the edges, but they've gotten better with each installment. You know, it's almost like Movie Games Lunarium learns from their mistakes. What a novel concept. But interestingly enough, I hear they aren't working on the next installment, Lust of God. I wonder who's developing it this time. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Your name is?
My name is Giger, H.R. Giger.